All right, welcome everyone. We are live with our newest edition of Real Talk, where we put the real in real estate. And I think we've got a real good topic tonight. We'll see who tunes in and what questions we have in our live chat. Don't forget to put those in there. But I've got our esteemed Kathy Faulkner, who is our MLS director for Metrotex. All things MLS, but not the culprit for everything that happens with the MLS. And we'll get more into that, right, Kathy?
Yes, please.
Okay, please. But we brought Sam DeBoard, CEO of Riso, on tonight to take some of the heat off Kathy Faulkner and Metrotex, of course. But Sam, I can't do it justice exactly what Riso is. So can you tell our audience what that is and, how that plays into this new MLS conversion we just did?
Sure. And thanks for having me on. Great to be here with all of you today. So Riso is what you'd best know as a data standards organization. It's a membership organization of all of the MLSs in our industry, the large brokerage organizations, associations, and technology vendors. And they come together to create a universal language, a standard that allows any of your technology systems to talk to each other. The goal is to give you a streamlined technology experience. So any system that wants to be able to integrate from agent apps to broker back office tools to an MLS data set to a consumer facing portal, you want that data to go cleanly and accurately across those systems and interoperate like the rest of our technology does in our world. And so Riso standards are the way we make that happen in the real estate industry.
So you didn't actually do this dirty deed to us you're not the technology provider, though, with the MLS conversion. We just took the Riso standards, the real estate standards organizations set up and applied that to this conversion. Is that correct?
Right. We're not technology vendors. We don't build the software products. We don't implement them for the MLSs, but we are the body where all the MLSs come together and agree on how to upgrade their systems more and more going forward and what that common set of rules for their foundation is going to be.
That was a very good PR answer, Sam. So hopefully we'll get into some more nitty gritty here in a minute. But Kathy, we did just do an MLS conversion. How's that been going for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, last week it was a little bit of a, kind of show. I hate to curse, but
yeah.
It's a show. So, but things have improved quickly. I've been through, I don't even know how many conversions. And so there's always problems. And so we expected it. We expected to be, some hard feelings, if you will, because some things have left now, like MLS areas. And so we expected a lot of, that. Plus, we have a whole population of people that didn't get the word. They don't understand. And I get it. My team has been working really hard. I mean, we're clocking more than 600 calls a day and 10 people to answer those calls. And they can physically only answer so many calls. And so, but I think we've created a lot of good content to help people move through that. But at the end of the day, the goal here is not to take away tools or anything. It's to improve what you have. And sometimes that process is painful to get from one end of that spectrum to the other. And Netris, who, North Texas Real Estate Information System, who is the multiple listing service, they've been working very closely with CoreLogic, who is the vendor for Matrix, to make this possible and to get converted. A lot of the problems that we had early on didn't have anything to do with the conversion. It had to do with I'm just going to throw it out there were some vendors that weren't ready. And so, but by Friday afternoon, we had those major issues squared away. There were some permission issues for some listing input functions that we worked through and got cleared up on by Friday. So now we're just kind of picking off a little few things here and there. There's going to be a reboot tonight and an installation of a new version of Matrix that'll solve more problems. So we hope that things will kind of start calming down just a little bit, and hopefully Sam's going to help us, understand how, other MLSs have transitioned already and have made this conversion, and they're really benefiting from it.
No, and that's fantastic. Well, I want to highlight the fact that we do have a landing page that is it's being updated every time issues are being solved. So I think the landing page is Big Matrix Changes, and we'll drop that in the chat. So what Kathy was talking about, there was a much longer list that went into our newsletters and some other things, and a lot of those have already been fixed. So you guys can check that in real time, and as those things are being cured, that will be on there. But there's also, I think, videos on there as well. Isn't that correct, with the MLS areas? So what was the mapping tool that you were talking about, the mapping video, Kathy?
Yeah, the overlay for the MLS areas on the map, there's a map overlay that still has the outlines of the areas. And so there is a way to preserve those as speed bar shortcuts. And that video is very simple. It's really simple to trace those and preserve them for future use. But the actual area numbers, they're gone. They're gone away.
Perfect. Okay. So Sam, take some heat off of Metrotex again and Netris, and tell us some of the other associations that have already gone down this road.
Sure. And you'll see that it's most of the large leading MLSs in the industry are making these upgrades to their system. And obviously there's some discomfort in that process. Every conversion. I personally have been a real estate agent. I've been licensed for 20 years. I've been a managing broker. I've had a team that I've led. So I've been through these conversions as a broker, and it's painful sometimes in some ways, because it's change. When any of your technology changes, there's, some discomfort going through that. But when we looked at the list of MLSs who are doing this sort of native cleaning up and converting of their entire system to RISO Data Dictionary in particular, you look at California Regional MLS, Bright MLS on the Eastern Seaboard. You've got Austin, you've got First MLS in Atlanta, Heartland MLS in Kansas City, RE Colorado, Stellar MLS in Florida, Utah Real Estate. These are probably 5 of the top 10 MLSs in the country, and they're all within the top 20. So there's a pretty obvious leading edge here that the MLSs who have the staff and the funding to really allow their agents and their brokers to have lots of technology tools at their disposal are seeing this need to go through this process so that their baseline foundation becomes stronger. And then they can integrate these products a lot faster for brokers and agents when they see something new that their brokers bring to them at a board meeting and say, hey, let's try this product out. Or the MLS goes out on its own and says, maybe we want to add more interfaces or agent-facing tools. You're in good company. Obviously, the work to be done is real work, and that process is not always a lot of fun in the short term. But all these other MLSs are not doing that work, for any reason other than they see the long-term technology benefits of that.
Well, just so you guys know, I don't know if you guys can see the comments in the chat, but of course, technology is fantastic. They're already flooding in. So I have my phone sitting here. Well, I'll be scrolling through the comments, but we have a ton already. And what I do want to say is, one, guys, we've got the big Big Matrix Changes landing page. That's where you can see the video that Kathy was talking about. That's one of the comments that's piping in. And then I know there are some questions that we will get to about specific things with the conversion, but I also want to highlight that there is going to be a webinar on this upcoming Monday, and that is going to be unlocking the new Matrix. And that's going to be just a Q&A session, guys. So we won't be able to get too far into the weeds on all of the items tonight, but please tune into that webinar, register for it. We will put the link in the chat as well, but that's a great forum to literally just ask questions. So if we don't get to you tonight, it's not because we don't want to, but I know a lot of people have a lot of questions. So Richard Weeks asked, are all MLSs in Texas going to convert? Do anybody have an answer for that? Okay.
Last conversation on it. But if Sam said Austin did, they're next in size. Well, Houston is the largest, then we're close. We're neck and neck with Houston as far as an overall MLS. And
sure.
Then Austin and San Antonio, I know, and like Sam said, Austin has made the conversion. I don't know where San Antonio is on the scale of consideration.
Sure. And go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I think it's important to divide some of these topics up, because I see some of the chat questions coming around, and some of them are about areas, and some of them are about other things that have to do with the RISO, compliance or native data dictionary thing. And so some of these are different features we can split out. But I think what you'll generally see is every MLS would like to do this if they had the resources to do it, but it's not easy. It's time consuming, it's resource consuming, and you have to go through this process, obviously. So everyone understands at this stage, they're RISO members for a reason. They see the value going forward, but you've got some legacy systems, some core MLS systems that are not fully standardized. And then there's a layer over top of them that is used for the data feeds. So your IDX feeds that go out to your brokers, and that's standardized. So that was the first step for a lot of organizations to do, is get certified that you could send your broker a data feed. But that core MLS system still hasn't been standardized, which is what these leading MLSs are now doing. So eventually everyone will do it. The question is how, when do they decide to make that transition?
I also liken this to, even our super boxes and different things like that. As the technology converts over, some are going to do it faster than others, and that doesn't mean one's wrong, one's right. It's just, obviously, we're the 5th largest association in the country, and then with our reach with Netris as well. If people are going to do it, the larger associations are probably going to be the ones that are going to lead the way in the beginning. But interesting question. Kelly Johnson Christian said, why would an MLS choose not to convert?
Simply the costs and the effort, I think. Kathy, you can speak to this, but it's not free. You got to work with your vendor to do this work. And so it just depends on if you have the time, the resources, and obviously the will to go through this somewhat uncomfortable portion of transition.
Yeah, and I know Netris has been they've been going field by field and matching them to the RISO data dictionary, and that process has taken well over a year. And it's a lot of staff time, because you've got to look at, okay, we have this field, where does it even exist in the data dictionary? And if it doesn't, what's the value of keeping it? And we kept a lot of things that are customized to our system. And then there's other items that there are improvements, that we have more pieces of data that we can share about our property, like the sustainability fields that we brought up, tons of them. And a lot of things aren't gone. They're just called something else. Like, we don't have handicapped amenities anymore. We have accessibility features. And
correct.
So, same thing, it's the same issue, same pieces of information, but improved and additional and more information that you have at your disposal now to help describe the property you're listing.
Well, I can tell you this. I have decided I wanted to lose a few pounds. So I have not been drinking for the first 2 weeks of March, and I am regretting not doing my real talk this evening with a drink in hand, which I normally am doing, because we have so many comments. I can't see my live chat, and everybody's so happy with us, guys. So I'm going to roll back just here for a minute, because like we said, we want to make sure that everybody feels heard this evening. John Marsh, I'm going to throw him out there because I know that guy. Why did we lose all the formatting? The visual appearance of everything is so flat now. Can we kind of touch on that, or do you understand what he's even referencing to?
No, the displays changed because the formatting changed, or the data changed, and they did some reformatting of some of the reports. We are re-examining some of those because they're not print friendly. Unfortunately, people are still printing, but I get it. You can't read your cell phone screen in your car. So they're reevaluating some of those. I'm not sure if I understand what flat means, but other than that, the the displays are the same. They haven't changed. All the format, everything that you had before is still there. As far as the way it looks, if you've made custom displays, they're all still there.
So, and I think going back to it, so we had somebody else chime in about the area. So Ashley Tapp Clements said, "Hi, Sam. I am a member of Austin MLS as well. Austin has done the update to the MLS and we still have areas. How is that?"
Yeah, so I think it's good to kind of describe the separation between the standard and what each of these business decisions are by the MLSs as well. So you can think of this core work with RISO standards as the database in the background of just cleaning all that up. Importantly, that doesn't take away custom local fields. We always talk about an MLS in Hawaii might have miles to volcano as one of their fields. And one in Colorado might have a ski up backyard. You probably don't use that in your MLS. It doesn't need to be in the data dictionary. So you can keep all those custom local fields if they're truly different. But if you have a list price, it's a list price. And it might have been called an ask price in one MLS and an asking price in another MLS. But that's the standardization, is we know these are the same things. So you've got that core database of things that when you clean that up, all the applications on top of it can run better. But then on top of that, you've got, folks asking about CMA tools and whether you've got areas available. And these are really business decisions made by the technology vendors and the MLSs as to what they think, are the best ways to put that layer for you, your interface on top of that database. And some of those decisions, I mean, we could talk about areas which is much more big picture real estate industry as to why MLSs are moving away from areas in very large numbers. But from a technology perspective, I think it's important to separate the data from the business decisions in the technology on top of that.
So Kathy, we knew areas was going to be a big topic of discussion this evening because it finally went away. And some of the comments, so Carla Adam Trussler, with the whole area search thing, why not keep both? We already have multiple ways we can run searches: zip code, city, school, district, etc. So we're not going to keep areas and sub areas for those of us who have come to know it over the last few decades. It's not like someone has to use that if they prefer to use another search method. Kathy, give me your spiel on that as to why we did that, and this was not a Metrotex or a Kathy Faulkner decision.
No, it wasn't. So just understand that the technology provider for that data was MapsCo. MapsCo went out of business. I don't even know how long ago now. They took with them that map and our ability to change it. And when the vote, which was in 2018 to retire our area system, was made, there was probably 20 requests for changes to that map that were left undone because we couldn't do them. One of those things for people that are in Dallas, they wanted to move the line for Area 17 to include the Cedars, which is in part of downtown Dallas, which has been revitalized, and it couldn't do it. They wanted to divide over in Northeast Tarrant County. They wanted to divide Westlake from Trophy Club. That's a huge difference in the marketing of the real estate product that are all lumped under one area. Couldn't do it. So why perpetuate? And I've asked over and over again, what's the boundaries for Oak Lawn? Nobody can tell me. And so there is a way for you to preserve those through that video content if you want to continue to use those, but it's so much quicker. You've got buyers who know what they want. They probably want to live close to work, and you've got all these tools available to make that happen. I don't know that you need areas. And I've had people, say, well, Colleyville, I'm losing the number for Colleyville. Well, Colleyville is Colleyville, for crying out loud. It was never that number was made up for the city limits of Colleyville. So use the cities that they're in if that's the city that your client wants to move to or purchase a property. And, you're kind of boxing people in when you make a decision for them, especially people who are coming from how many people are moving in droves to Texas? They don't know those areas. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. It's only a convenience for you guys, but are you forgetting the needs of your client by using those boxes or map boundaries? And let's not even get into discussions of fair housing and things like that, because I've sat at tables that now and had conversations about those areas that might be considered inappropriate at this point. because of the, that whole discussion of moving boundaries, because, well, this real estate product, now in this area is different. And so we need to move the line, to expand to include those. Well, the properties on the other side of that boundary are lower income properties, things like that. So let's, we know better. So let's do better and not perpetuate a system dates probably back to the 50s or 60s. We don't even know how far back it went, but it's not a value. And we have so many members that don't use that system any longer, that because we stopped training on it, so they never learned it. And so they've been using other tools, so they're fine,
But,
okay.
Well, and we've gotten, we knew this was going to be the big, probably heated portion of the topic. And what I can say is, guys, this decision was not made 3 months ago. This decision was made how long ago, Kathy?
2018.
2018. So we've had 4 years to transition into figuring out other ways to utilize, to keep the areas. We have the mapping tools. We have fantastic videos on the big Matrix changes landing page to teach you how to save those areas and speed bar shortcuts. And I know that's not what everybody wants to hear, but the decision was made 4 years ago. It's done. It's not up for discussion. And that's not to mean that we don't want to answer your questions as to why it happened here. We've had somebody chime in and say, but it's, Austin still has them. Well, we can't speak for Austin, but what we can speak for is that the decision was made for a reason. We have a rapidly developing and growing area, not just the transitioning of certain areas that are turning over, but also the new construction, all the vast land that we have had. There aren't areas to cover all of the development that has gone on. And so it did happen. There are ways still to utilize that type of mapping tool for you guys, though, that do like it. There's nothing wrong with the fact that you like it. It's just the fact that there's now a new way that you have to adapt to using it. And so I know that's been a lot of the questions here. So going back to another one, let's see, and I'm sorry, guys, I apologize. Our public chat is not showing, so I'm trying to keep up, and you all have great questions.
If I could offer one quick thing there, in the other MLSs that we've talked to about MLS areas going away and what that discussion was like, it's that we continue training people on 3, 4, 5 different ways to find a property for their clients. And it's kind of like car audio technology, where at a certain point we've got cassettes, we know how to use them, but the car makers just stop supporting cassettes at a certain point. They have to make a decision at some point because it's outdated, because we went to CDs and then we went to streaming and Spotify. And it's not that it's bad that folks use older technology. It's just that the technology services at a certain point are going to stop using outdated ways of finding things when they have better ways to do that. So it's kind of been the answer in most of the MLSs that we've talked to have done it. And this is not a RESO position. This is just feedback that I've gotten from MLSs and from my brokerage and conversations with the local realtor association.
There's another, and I appreciate that, Sam. There's another comment from Marty Voorhees. With all these changes, why do they still call it master if we can't say that? And I don't think we can't say that. That's not a rule. I think some MLSs have adopted that. Is that correct, Kathy, changing the terminology?
And I can happy to address that. Our MLS committee, who's very diverse, did discuss that. And they said, when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, master bedroom is not your problem.
Yeah.
And that was the topic of that conversation in our MLS committee. Changing that term that moves away from a commonly known term that the consumer is used to would create confusion for the consumer and not fix the problems that are out there that you're afraid that you're going to offend someone. And I'm telling you, and I'm serious when I say that this is a very diverse MLS committee who had a very open conversation about it, and they voted to leave it alone. And so now if someone on the MLS committee wants to put that back on the table to change it to primary or whatever, whatever the word du jour is on HGTV for the primary bedroom, en suites and all that stuff, then it's perfectly fine to do that. I'm not saying don't do it, and neither did the MLS committee. They just said, if you want to help the issues of our industry that are related, master bedroom is not your problem. you have bigger issues than that term.
And you know what? I'm going to bring this back around to what a great plug to get on your committees, because this is where a lot of that stuff ends up happening, and have the discussions. We have MLS committee, we have professional development committee, we have forms and contracts committee, and all of those are there. It's a meeting of the minds to then figure out what we need to do to help further the initiative, evolve the association in those different topics. So Mary Beth Pappas, a major change like removing MLS areas needs to be run by the Metrotech membership. Many of us feel like we've had no voice in these major decisions. Sam, you can't answer that, but Kathy, since this was in 2018, can you tell us how that was facilitated or how the decision was made in 2018?
So NETRIS has a user committee, and on the user committee are representatives from each association that is part of NETRIS. So, and it's not me; it's realtors that sit on that committee. And so the information came to them. They studied, the pros and cons of perpetuating the situation, having a system that's not updatable. We had people that were offended because they didn't have, like you said earlier, we can't put such and such subdivision in a such and such area because the outlying areas outside of Dallas and Fort Worth are growing and changing, and we couldn't make any changes to accommodate them. And so that group of realtors, practitioners, decided it was best to retire the system. And honestly, it's been kept in place for a while to help people get ready, even though it was 2018. And then when the subject came up, we started talking about it again in, last summer. And so we've been answering this question now for literally 6 or 7 months now of why they were retired. And I don't know how much more we can say, except that it's a system that's outdated, unchangeable, and is fraught with its own issues. And so,
Kathy, when I bring you back in 3 months to talk about other changes, we will talk about areas again, I assure you. But for now, I do think we need to get off that topic because we have so many other fantastic comments that are coming here. So one of the things here, Kyle Ravinsky has put a lot of comments here. So the most recent one was that Kathy mentioned the print-friendly or unfriendly aspect of the new info system. She then made a comment about people still printing. Does MLS envision a day when documents are no longer printed?
That's up to you guys. I mean, you have to ask yourself why, because it's costly to you guys to print. Ink is not cheap. Paper is not cheap, and you have to ask yourself why you're printing. And so I do know that there are tools like Cloud CMA has Buyer Tour that you can put on an iPad, and it just depends on the capability of your technology as you're out. It's an issue of mobility, I think, more than anything, of when you're out and about and what you have access to look at. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
Okay, Carlos Mendoza, as a new realtor, when do you think would be the best time with new changes to get familiar with it? A week from now, when would you recommend? And I would assume Carlos is just meaning, playing around and trying to learn the new system.
Start now. I mean, it's open, it's available. Look at the video content. Because if you don't know the old system, then there's nothing for you to learn except the system as it is now. So come to our classes. We're still doing our classes. So not only the Q&A session on Monday, but we have our full slate of classes that are going to continue on. So make sure you come to class, and they're going to go through how the system works. And so definitely take advantage of that.
So I am going to put something out here, and I think Sam might be able to kind of speak on it as well. But Jamie Story Coleman, just a piece of feedback. I've had multiple clients continue to use Redfin, Zillow, etc., because those are superior products to our app and One Home emails. I wish that had been a point of focus during all of these upgrades. Sam, I'd love you to kind of touch base on that. You've got a wealth of background knowledge, not just being the CEO of Reso, but also being a broker practitioner. So can you touch on a little bit?
Sure. I think that a lot of those consumer-facing companies have focused their money and their time on making the best consumer experiences possible, where a lot of times brokers and MLSs are focusing on multiple different audiences. So, this kind of work that the MLS here has done is kind of the gritty background work to start fueling their ability to do bigger and better things on consumer and agent facing tools. So that's part of the issue. Is obviously some of these companies have millions or billions of dollars to spend on technology, so they can sort of gloss over the differences and the inconsistencies in MLS data sets and make it look good for the consumer. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to do that as brokers and MLSs as well. And that requires us, with fewer funds than a venture capital fueled company, to have a better core set of data so that you can provide that experience. So I think your question is spot on in that those are the companies that have provided the best consumer experience so far. And it would be important for brokers and MLSs to continue trying to provide, the foundation so that every broker can go out and provide a great experience like that.
And I think it's, listen, I have the same question when I'm doing buyer consults and everything else. Obviously, our real time, updates and data feed is more prompt than these other syndicated websites. But I always tell my clients, if there's an app that you gravitate towards, that you use for your search tool, and it's become your whoopee, I'm not taking your whoopee away from you and going to force you to use One Home. But that's what we have. So I have the real-time data updates and everything else that's a lot more expedient than what you're using. But use that tool. It's all about making it better, removing the friction for the consumer. So my point would be, don't force them. Tell them, hey, Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com, all of those things, they are tech companies. They're tech companies that do real estate. They're not realtors that decided to get into tech. So that's the difference here. And I think we all have to remember that it's quite costly to have robust technology and platforms. And that's not something, unless we all want to start raising our dues a little bit more, that I think we all are going to be able to compete with the Redfin. That's just my personal opinion there. So going back to, but Kelly Johnson, Christiani, and I apologize if I'm mincing the names on the copy and paste here, but they were Christian, Kelly Johnson Christian, there we go. She was told that a main reason for this compliance is exactly that. So our online data feeds more smoothly into those websites, the Zillows, the Redfins, different things like that. Kathy?
Well, Zillow and Redfin are brokerages. So
correct.
We got to remember that. So the benefit of it is not directly to third-party, vendors. It's for the benefit of our brokerages first, and our members, and then the vendors lastly. But these products that you use, such as Lone Wolf has back office products for, so does .loop, and what is the other one? I'm trying to remember. They all get MLS data feeds so to help you with your accounting systems, with your inventory. It's to help those vendors to get the data not in an hour or two, but almost instantly. Because what we're working towards is a technology called API, where it's real time. I mean, not 15 minutes lag, but a real time. Get it now. Get your information updated, and get that information out to these vendors that, your CRM systems are getting data feeds. I mean, forget the third-party websites. This is to benefit you guys. It's just right now it's hurting really badly. Last week, I talked to people who were in the throes of updating their CRM system that didn't have anything to do with MLS, and they were crying because their CRM was messed up because they were going through a conversion. They also talked to property managers who were going through upgrades in their property management software, who were dying because it was a conversion and it wasn't going well. And so you have all these systems that are making transitions that are not MLS related, that anytime you do, it's a struggle. One Home has had some issues since we did the conversion. We hope tonight with the things that they're going to do, that reset and that little upgrade that we're going to do tonight, that should fix a lot of the One Home issues. I see comments about notes and things like that. That should restore some of those issues. And if not, we'll continue to work through it until we get it done.
And Kathy, go ahead, Sam.
Well, just to follow on Kathy's point about these vendors, the point of these data feeds is brokers and brokers vendors. So most of the companies we're talking about are broker participants in the MLS, even though obviously some of them, a large part of their business is advertising portals as well. But we talk about the companies that are broker back office companies, your Lone Wolves and your Moxie Works and your Inside Real Estates that are getting far bigger data sets than what you see on a public listing site. It's about making that work across markets, across MLSs, across vendors for the brokers. You've got, all these integrations that we're seeing with the companies that have done these conversions, like Metrotex, getting 5x, 10x, 20x faster. And that's these stories we've been able to publish lately as the MLSs I named earlier are integrating with Real Scout and Remind and HomeSnap and TourZaz and Rent Spree. All these things are working faster and integrating more quickly into MLSs who decide to adopt them because they've done this work initially to clean up the core of that data set. And then whether it's a feed going out to the brokers and their vendors, or whether it's an integration of a new broker tool at the MLS core level, all those things just happen more efficiently.
Well, and I appreciate that, Sam. And again, I want to highlight and apologize, guys. You guys, there's a lot of great comments and questions in here, and if we don't get to them, we are trying. I am hurriedly trying to dig in while you guys are putting them in. But I want to talk about again, because we did in the beginning of the show, that there is a live webinar next Monday. The link is in the chat. I'm sure we can put that in there again. But that is all it is. It is a Q&A with the MLS department. So a lot of these things that you guys are asking or inquiring about, will this be fixed? How is this working? Those type of things with bugs. Give us a minute. And I know Kathy said we've already worked out a lot of them. There's another kind of reset that's going on tonight. So by Monday, a lot of those might already be answered. But definitely tune in on Monday if you have specific questions. And if you can't, there will be a replay. So I bet somebody else will have the same question that you guys will. I am going to talk about Frank Purcell's comments, because he's been talking about the fact that we need to be more Dallas oriented. And the last comment that he made, we need Dallas-based responsive Metrotex. What are we really paying for if we're just adapting programs and they have no input? Frank also said, if realtors are outside of Dallas, why don't we go back to a Dallas-based realtor base rather than trying to make our system work for rural areas? So I'm going to talk first, because I am a practitioner and I'm also a volunteer leader in this association for a reason. I've been doing this for almost 17 years myself, and I don't know about you guys, but this is a pretty crazy market with very limited inventory. And I still want to eat and be a top producing realtor. And if I only focused on one small area right now, which might have 12 listings at a time, I'd probably be living in a ditch. So me personally, I've had to evolve, become more geographically competent, especially for a lot of people that have been in more dense urban or suburban areas that have decided they work remotely. They want to work with me. I only work by referral, but now they're pushing out. So those rural areas are not as rural as they used to be. A lot of our client base is actually looking to move there. So I find it a value proposition that we get smarter and we allow those rural areas to be adequately represented in our MLS system. So Frank, what I would tell you is you are very lucky that you are in an association that continues to evolve and try to outpace their cohorts around them. But so much of the MLS is not just Metrotex, and that's Netris. Kathy, can you talk about that as far as the MLS and Netris, that this is not a Metrotex specific platform?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to Metrotex as being a shareholder of Netris, you've got Collin County, you've got Greater Denton Wise, you've got the Greater Fort Worth Association, the Arlington Board, Johnson County Association, Greater Texoma, Northwest Louisiana. People, I've known some question, why is Louisiana coming up in our search? Because Northwest Louisiana, which is Bossier City and Shreveport, are part of Netris. You are going to see more efforts on a national level to regionalize multiple listing services, to make them bigger than Netris, to make them in some cases statewide, which there are some MLSs that are statewide, because brokers in Texas don't have borders.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kathy, that's the other thing.
You're licensed in Texas to sell real estate.
Hey, you could, Adorna Carroll can always comment on this, who is a former NAR president. I remember taking, when she's teaching her leadership classes and everything else, talking about having to be a member because, I mean, gosh, North Texas, how much area we span is huge. And you go to some of these other areas that all have their own little carved out MLS systems, and then you're going to watch your dues go up and up and up and up to be a part of these other MLSs. I mean, we're very blessed that this is such a large, expansive MLS system. But hey, Frank, you know what? More power to you, man, that you've never been in a ditch. I personally haven't either. I just don't want to go there anytime soon. So I appreciate it. And I will tell you, I agree with you. Our clients do want us to have expertise and specific knowledge base, but removing the areas is not going to inhibit you from being able to do that. So I think that's what we need to focus on, is the fact that this is not to hinder, but it's here. And that's what the point of this, Real Talk is tonight, is to not demonize the people that like to use areas, to not demonize the people that liked the old, MLS interface. But this is a part of evolving. We talked about the analogy of Apple. We are on iOS what now? 15. I mean, at 15.72, because every time there's a new operating system that we have to upgrade to, because Apple sees that we can run more efficiently this way, or there's bugs that they need to fix and all of those other things. And I don't see anybody throwing their iPhone out the window or their iPad, because Apple continues to upgrade and evolve their operating system. So let's see, LaShonda, is there anything implemented to make realtors accountable for updating their listings in a timely manner?
Well, yeah, I mean, report it, and we hold their feet to the fire to get it updated. So yeah, that's just to report it to the MLS department. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's see, Mac McNult. It seems as if Metrotex membership has no say in regards to what we need to do for our business, even though we pay dues. Your response to Mary Beth just said the MLS committee made the decision to do away with areas. Mary Beth suggested the membership should be able to say what we need. I still don't understand why we can't have both and let us choose what tools we need.
Join the MLS committee when we do our recruitment process in the fall, and be part of that decision-making process. I mean, Metrotex sends tons of suggestions to Netris. There's a layer. It goes from Metrotex to the Netris user committee, and then the user committee makes decisions on whether those things go forward or not. And that user committee is made up from representative from all 15 shareholders, and they're all realtors. It's not Kathy making these decisions. It's not the staff from Greater Fort Worth or Collin County making these decisions. It's the realtors who volunteer to be on these committees. So, yeah, we have some great discussions in the MLS committee. So, definitely.
And that's hard. And I will tell you, I also hear a lot of people say they don't have time. They don't have time to volunteer on the committees and do everything else. And I get that, but I will tell you, I wasn't overly involved. When I did TRLP, which we've got our new TRLP class 30 that will be starting in April, which is super exciting. But I actually did the leadership program, and that's when I realized, wow, there's a lot of decisions that are being made, and there's a lot of decisions that are being made on my behalf as a realtor practitioner and as an owner of my brokerage. And I said, gosh, I got to be there. I've got to be a part of those discussions. And we are blessed to be in such a large and influential association. But when you have 26,000 members, we have to have smaller bodies that are speaking on our full membership behalf. And so for me, that was a decision I made. I don't have the time to volunteer, but I did say it was imperative for my business and the evolution of my business to be involved. So I know it seems hard, Carla, that if you're not on the MLS committee that you don't have a say. That's not necessarily the case. The MLS committee is not the unilateral decision-making body, but they are the ones that are having the discussions that are then, like you said, Kathy, taking them, further for further discussion with Netris, so on and so forth. Johnny, I'm gonna say what Johnny just said real quick, because Johnny is actually Do you know what Johnny's position is at NAR now?
Oh,
Kathy?
Johnny Moad, he is the chair of the MLS Forum. Sam is familiar with Johnny, and I think they did a panel discussion at one of the conferences together. Yeah, so.
Awesome. Well, Johnny's always good to chime in, especially when we're getting roasted a little bit. So Johnny said, stay strong, guys. The issue being addressed today is a lack of knowledge and understanding as to how things work, not only locally, but through the state and national level as well. Just know the improvements are being made for the overall benefit to its subscribers and shareholders. And that's the case. And again, this is not to demonize people. We are getting it from 5,000 people right now and doing our best to not be defensive, not be cagey, to try to get through all your comments. And I get there's a lot of passion behind this. And I do understand that there's a lot of people that have a very refined client base or geographical area that they practice out of. This is not saying don't do that. It's just, unfortunately, like Sam, you used a great analogy with car makers. You know, doesn't mean you couldn't have a cassette tape when CDs came out. You know, then CDs went to, you know, MP4 or streaming or whatever. And here we are now. It is a business decision.
So I think it's also important to acknowledge that a lot of folks don't feel like they had a voice in the process, because as having been a realtor and a broker, a lot of us aren't paying attention, because you're not working on MLS policy. You're not working on realtor policy. You're not working on the MLS committee because you're busy. We get that. That's what we hear in most of these conversions is it's not your top priority. And you probably shouldn't have it as your top priority unless you're really, really focused on Realtor Association volunteering. But that being said, the processes are there, and the results sometimes surprise people on the other end of the process. But I don't know what your situation is at MetroTex, but you know, we talked to some MLSs where they can still fax in a listing input, and the staff at the MLS will manually put that listing into the MLS for them. Whereas other MLSs have said, you've got to have an agent or a broker and someone on your staff. We've provided you this great technology to input a listing. We can't support this faxed in paper sheet that we put in the MLS. And it's just a business decision at a certain stage by technology companies, which MLSs are these days, is to how many different ways are we going to support of getting something done? And at what point are we going to deprecate or sort of tombstone a really old way of doing something, even though it'll hurt a little bit for people who are used to doing that. And it's just going to be something that they'll have to work through.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, you know, we discussed companies like Zillow and Realtor.com and things like that. And when they make a change, they don't ask anybody's opinion. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but here's the issue. MLSs, realtor associations, just in general, are accused of moving slowly. Probably that's why some of the MLSs that you've interacted with are in the condition that they have, because a committee decided that they wanted to study it for 6 or 7 months, and then they wanted to do a survey. The survey was split, and only 10% of the membership responded to the survey, and then they have to study it some more. So a year later, that technology is not even available any longer, and now they have to start over. And nothing got done. And so we're trying to be in from the MLS level, from the membership, from the Realtor Association level, more nimble to move forward. And sometimes that's a hard process to do. How do we balance the needs of our members a lot? And it's not staff decisions. Again, we have a body of volunteers. There's probably 300 or 400 people that are volunteers on our various committees, maybe more than that. I don't have the actual numbers, that decided that they were going to make the time to be involved and be a part of these decision-making processes. We depend on you guys to tell us what you need. So as far as a decision to put it out to the membership, I'm not sure that we would have gotten enough feedback to keep it one way or the other. So to keep the areas one way, and at the end of the day, it's a moot point. MapsGo is out of business. I cannot help that. They are the ones who created that map. They gave us the technology, and then they went out of business. It's just like when they went out of business, they took their books. I got yelled at when MapsGo stopped printing their books, like I had a control over that. But I don't have no control over this issue as well. Neither does Netris, and neither does CoreLogic. the technology is retired. It's not available for us to update any longer. So we don't have a choice but to put this to bed and to move on without them. And you've got some great tools in the MLS system to use that will overcome this issue. Just got to give it a little bit of a chance.
So I want to highlight something right now. It is 6:20 at night, and we have the head of the MLS for Metrotex on here right now because people are commenting that they don't feel like they're being supported. They don't feel like we're here for them. That's what this is. And I get it, guys. I get it. It's frustrated. I get frustrated too, whether it's with the MLS system, whether it's with something else. Ultimately, my goal is to help advocate for my clients and figure out the right tools and the right information to be able to do that. And this is not to, again, demonize how people were operating. This is not to sit there and throw anybody to the wolves and saying, well, gosh, that was archaic. You need to evolve or get out of here. This is just to say we're here. And it's not going away. There's a couple of questions or a couple of comments that are getting a little strong. And I think we just need to put those out there. So one of them is by Carla Adam Trussler. Please answer my question above. And I apologize, Carla. I am sitting here on my phone that keeps on going blacked out because we don't see your comments in our host chat, unfortunately. Technology is great when it works, right? So we are not trying to ignore anybody. And as you can see, we've had a lot of comments already. But she said, we cannot all be on the MLS committee. So we need answers as to when the proposed changes were brought to the membership. So what she is saying is once the changes were discussed and the MLS committee decided to vote on it, she basically wants to know, did we bring it to the membership?
Not for a vote, no, but we did, because ultimately the decision makers were at Netris, and then the decision was final. Once the decision was made, we did, back in 2018, we discussed it. I went around to area meetings and discussed it. We put out, but then they didn't get retired right away. And so we all forgot about it until this past summer, 2021, when Netris said, okay, this is happening, and it's going to happen first quarter of next year. They're going to be gone. And we started discussing it again. So we've been having this discussion again now, videos. We did a whole webinar, I believe, a real talk back then when the decision was made to retire it, and as to why they were being retired. So no, it didn't go to a vote of the membership. It didn't go to, our email, we had a representative that sat on the Netris user committee. And when they sit down at that table, they're not representing Metrotex. They are representing the users of Netris, and that's their fiduciary. That's their responsibility, is to the body of Netris. And so they made a decision, and the decision of the user committee was, voted on, and it passed to retire it. And so that's what we move forward with that piece of information. But no, it didn't go to any vote of the membership. That's not how it was set up, because again, we're dealing with technology that is no longer available to us to do anything.
And this is very similar to how we see volunteer leadership drive, decisions across the industry. You've got folks like Ashley, Johnny Moad, who get very heavily involved. And your business is your focus, but you will, get effects of changes from the organization, the association, or the MLS. So they're usually decisions made from volunteers, but they're representatives of the greater membership there. So it's critical to be aware of what's happening, if not directly involved. But a lot of us, myself included, have been a local association president and an NAR volunteer, and these are all, again, unpaid positions that take away from our sales. But at the end of the day, we want to have that voice in there with our organization. So it's another opportunity to do that.
And I do believe it, because I have felt like a stick of dynamite has been lit on fire and stuck up my butt for the past hour. But we're almost to the end. We actually have 5 minutes left. And so I just want to talk about a couple of things. There's been a few comments of people are feeling like we have not been responsive, and we don't truly care about their needs or concerns. And I hate that that's how somebody is feeling. I am never going to sit there and say, just because I don't believe that's the case, that your feelings aren't valid. Obviously, somewhere along the way, whether you were reaching out to Metrotext or, sent an email or did something else, and you're not feeling like we're responsive enough. And I say we, because I am on the executive team. I'm your secretary treasurer this year. So I hate that that's the sentiment, because that's not what we want to hear. But what I would say is, please reach out personally. For those of you that have been, putting a lot of stronger comments in there, I would not shy away from having a discussion of being a servant leader in the association and somebody that does want to represent your voice. Feel free to message me directly on Facebook, or you can text me, call me, email me, do whatever you want to do. But these are conversations that I do want to hear more about, because I hate that that's what the tone is right at this moment. Because again, we have a staff person who has been with Metrotext for decades, sitting here right now taking her evening so that we could bring this and we could reach more people. Because unfortunately, people unsubscribe to our emails. They don't subscribe to our Facebook page. They're not watching videos. They're not going to area meetings. They're not doing anything else. Even with the code of ethics, we actually had to hire an outside company because we did not want our members to lose a minute of being able to operate at the end of December when that had to happen. We hired a whole nother firm to individually call, email, communicate with our members to make sure that you were communicated with. And unfortunately, it's just like our clients. Not every client wants someone to be texted, someone to be emailed, someone to be, called, someone to do a face-to-face. And I think that's what we need to remember, is we are all trying here. And tonight, and by the way, guys, I do this every other week for free to give back to the association and to bring people on here so you can listen after a hard day's worth of work, instead of having to do a webinar or a class or something else, that you can flip on YouTube or your phone on Facebook and learn about what's going on in our association. So I want to just put that out there, as far as, we are here for you. I don't want this to feel like it was us against everybody's comments tonight, because they're strong feelings and they are valid. But what I can say is, please, do get involved. And even if you don't have the time to do certain things, there is still availability for you to have involvement. You can actually attend MLS committee meetings. You just can't be a voting member if you don't start when the calendar year starts on the committee. Isn't that correct, Kathy?
Right. All of our meetings are open, and there's no restriction to keep anybody out. And I would just like to say that no one has had more heartburn over this decision about the areas than me, because I know Dallas is a hard city to divide. I mean, how do you divide the city? And I totally get it. I'm on your side. I can't sit here and say I have any control over it, but I'm here to help you make the transition. And so is my team. And I will tell you that my team is weary from the browbeating that they're getting, because it's not calls to say, how can you help me transition? It's browbeating. And so just remember, my team is here to help you move from one point to another. And that's their heart. That's why they come to work every day, is because they want to help you transition. And so I hope that if you do call my team, that you'll be patient. I am open to come to any meeting. And I will ask this, rather than taking to social media, which I know about, and bashing me, call me on the phone. My door is always open. My ear is always open. But also, if you're going to go to social media to do that, please like our Facebook page, where we put all these updates out there to keep you informed, so you'll be informed, so you won't be taken aback when there are changes. And so, I'll come and answer any questions. I've got meetings lined up from here till the next month, answering questions about that. I'm not afraid. I'll come to your office. I'll come to your masterminds group. I'm good. I've got broad shoulders. But at the end of the day, I'm here to help you transition. You can ask for explanations all day, and I can give you the explanation. But at the end of the day, we need to help you move on and help you and make the best of the system that you do have. And believe me, there are how many MLSs in the country that don't have areas, and they're fine. They're doing okay, right, Sam?
There are a lot of them. There are
yes.
very many.
Yeah.
Well,
large metropolitan areas too, not just Dallas.
So I'm going to let Sam do a send off here. We're probably going to run a couple minutes over, so just bear with me. But Frank Purcell, I would like you to reach out to me directly. I know you've had a few extra questions about who runs Metritex, how are the management decisions made, who does MLS. Those are a lot of good questions, and I would be happy to walk you through that. And if I can't, I will find the right person. We also have an amazing CEO in Janet Kane, who her door is always open and virtual right now until we're in our new building. But we are blessed to have staff that do truly care. And Kathy, I know we haven't been able to see all the comments, but a lot of people have said, we do see how much you care, Kathy. Thank you for all that you have done. It's very easy. We always hear the negative stuff and we forget to say the positive things. But Kathy and her MLS team, Frank, I've got your cell phone number, so I'll be reaching out, sir. Thank you for posting that. But Kathy and her MLS team are amazing. And they are servant staff leaders of our association that truly care and want to do better. And I just don't think people know how blessed we are when we're going all over the nation and talking to other associations and other boards and say, oh my gosh, you guys are just, we want to be more like you. Can you tell us how you're doing these things? You know, we're not behind the 8 ball, guys. We are trying to be in the forefront to do better by our members. There are a lot of questions we were not able to answer. And I know people are saying, please, please, please answer this one. There will be a Q&A on that webinar on Monday. And if you can't be on the webinar, have somebody else be on there and ask your question for you. There will also be a replay that will be redistributed on really specific questions of the bugs and the kinks that we're trying to work out right now. And ultimately, you know, it will get better, guys. I promise. I know it's really painful. It's only been a week, and it will get better, and we'll all evolve through this. But Sam, what about you? Can you give us a little send off here?
Sure. You know, I think you may have heard the saying, when you're on the cutting edge, sometimes you bleed a little bit. And I think if you look at the MLSs that are doing this kind of work, like your organization is, they go through a little bit of pain, but that crowd is the leading edge crowd moving forward. Kathy has served with me on NAR's technology advisory board. That is a small group of leading edge thinkers in the technology space for a number of years. So, you know, when Apple took the regular headphone jack out of my iPhone, I was mad. I had to get these stupid dongles to hook my headphones up to this phone now. And I didn't have a choice. And it's understandable there's that pain. But on the other side, with your associations and MLSs, you do still have a voice there. And I know it's sometimes very separated from the decision makers, but they're realtor members making those decisions. It's not some body of corporate leaders out there doing that. So while it's not always the greatest feeling in the world to be a few layers away from that, knowing that you can find those people and talk to those people and be aware of what's coming downstream at a minimum gives you that opportunity to really, you know, be involved in the process as much as you want to be.
Thank you for that, Sam. And thank you, Kathy, for, again, your tireless efforts and volunteering your time off the clock to sit here and be with us tonight. And what I can say is, guys, please subscribe to our Facebook page, because all of the things that go in the newsletters, all of the big things that are going on, we make sure, because I know a lot of people use social media more than they use their email or their promotions tab in their Gmail or something else. So get on there, because then you will know when committee sign up, somebody posted about that. When will we know about things like that? Facebook, get on our social media channels if that's something that you use consistently. So we are here for you guys. I am personally going to try to reply to a lot of these comments after we're offline here in a second. And then Frank, you betcha I'm going to call you tomorrow, buddy. So we're going to have a little bit more of a chat. But thank you again, Sam. And thank you, Kathy, for taking the time this evening. Go enjoy the rest of the day. And hopefully we'll get to see you guys very soon, okay?
And thank you.
With you today.
Thank you.